Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending the i.CODE event. I hope you get a lot out of this evening. My name's Brendan, and I am going to be presenting the webinar this evening, and I'm going to be helped by a whole lot of people. So first off, I will just introduce you to our speakers for this evening. So guys, if you can bring yourselves up on screen. There's Sarah. Sarah is currently completing her fast track coding bootcamp. She's got a couple of weeks left to go, and she's going to be talking to us about her experience in a little while. Michael there is one of the senior trainers on the fast track bootcamp in Sydney. So Michael is going to have a chat to us about, from a technical perspective, any questions you might have from that point of view. And he's also going to talk about his career so far and why he's training at Coder Academy. And Alex is somewhere. Is Alex on screen or is Alex not on screen? Oh, Alex is trying to get on screen. There he is. There he is. Alex is currently heading home in a vehicle, I believe. Is that right, Alex?
That's correct.
Yes, good stuff. So by the time it's Alex's turn to speak, I think he will be home. So Alex has been, he completed the fast track boot camp nearly a year ago, and he's going to talk to us about his what's happened in the last 12 months in industry. So what we are going to do, so you can remove yourself, Alex. So what we are going to do is give you the whole sweep of the bootcamp journey, I hope, and I hope it's very informative. I'm also going to ask Dallas and Henry to come on screen now. Dallas, Henry and I are the course advisors. You will probably have spoken to one, at least, of us, many of you. That's what we look like. We're a beautiful bunch. I'm just going to ask Henry to do a little bit of housekeeping, how we're going to run the evening, how to ask your questions, etc., etc. So, Henry, go nuts.
Sure thing. Thanks, Brendan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we dive into way more interesting topics. You might have noticed the chat button at the bottom where you can write your questions. If I can ask everyone to send messages to all panelists and attendees instead of just panelists, this is something we can't really do from our end. It needs to be done from your side. And this way we can make sure that the questions and answers are visible for everybody. Some questions will be left to the end for Q&A section, so don't be alarmed if you don't see your answers right away. We will definitely make sure it's going to get answered throughout the presentation. Now, that's it from me, and back to you, Brendan.
Okay, thank you, Henry. So Dallas and Henry will be dropping in from time to time. Look, one of the other things that we should all be aware of is obviously sometimes in these things the tech fails. And in fact, my internet dropped out about 10 seconds before we were due to come on air here. So you never know, it might happen again. If it does, don't panic. Dallas will drop in and he will take over. He'll take over from me. So one way or the other, we'll make this work. So look, what we're going to do to start with, some of you, I don't know, may have already been to one of our fortnightly webinars about the fast track and the flex track coding bootcamp. If you have, then some of what I'm going to do now will be a little bit familiar to you. I'm going to run through a very brief presentation on what the fast track and flex track bootcamp covers off on and why you might be thinking of doing it. It's a lot shorter presentation than the one we do in the full webinar, but it will hit all the main points, and then we're going to go straight to the speakers. So without further ado, can you become a full stack web developer in as little as 6 months? Yes, you can. That's why we're all here. What are the opportunities and who employs full stack web developers? Well, you can break it down into probably these main groups. Obviously anyone in IT,
I think we lost Brendan for a moment. Dallas, you are on mute.
Sorry, just making sure that it wasn't my internet that dropped out. So I think we did just lose Brendan. So bear with me for a moment. Okay. Cool. All righty then. Sorry about that. Let's just have a quick chat. So employs full stack developers, information technology from web dev software. There is no shortage of roles available in this space. Retail, with high turnover in online retail, the demand for full stack developers is significant. These organizations are turning to web developers to provide a stable platform and improve the user experience to boost sales. Financial institutions, as the financial industry continues to shift online, these large institutes are looking to employ in-house full stack devs to provide holistic solutions in the pursuit of achieving organizational goals. Digital agencies. So this deserves a separate mention, as full stack devs can sometimes earn a premium from such employers. Many digital agencies provide complete solutions to clients, which include website and application design and maintenance, as well as content solutions. Other industries that offer full stack dev jobs: education, manufacturing, logistics, public sector, and telecommunications, and an array of consultancy firms. Brendan, you're back. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, wow. Honestly,
all good.
My internet has been perfect all day.
We're just up to the up to some of the grads workout, so some of the partners.
Beautiful. Oh, and so are you sharing your screen at the moment?
Yeah, maybe you should share your screen over the top though, because I'll have to try and keep up with you speaking.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, let me do that. Blimey, this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to do that? Yes, I do.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. All right, let's hope that's the one and only time it happens tonight. Am I sharing now, Dallas? Can you see it?
Perfect. All good.
Beautiful. Okay, so salaries. Oh, did you do the salary stuff?
No, so we're just going to jump back a little bit, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's what I was up to. No, sorry, that is the next slide. Good to go.
Yeah. Cool, cool. All right. So look, average salary, 110,000 for a full stack developer. Depends maybe which city you're in a little bit, but so it's well paid. Now we talk average salary. I can tell you that the great majority of our graduates go into the business as junior developers, and typically are paid in their first gig as a junior developer anything between 65 and 75,000. So if the average is 110, there are obviously lots of people out there earning significantly more than that. In-demand skills, 23.4% job growth within the next 5 years is what's predicted, and 100,000 job openings in Australia over the next 3 years. So well paid, lots of opportunity, lots of different industries, and lots of growth. So it's a hot sector. This is just to show you some of the businesses that we work with or have worked with recently, either to use for internships or to use for mentoring or whatever it might be. Many of those you'll recognise, the big ones at the top. Others you may not, sort of small to medium-sized businesses and startups. But essentially, we work with a whole series of different industry partners, and particularly when it comes to placing people in internships at the end of the course. Coder Academy, why Coder Academy? Look, there's plenty of reasons, but essentially, if you want to listen to the students and what they say, I would suggest you go to Course Report. Course Report is a portal where any student studying any course can go and place their assessment of that course. They can write a review, basically. We don't have any rights to edit that at all. So what you are seeing there is what the students think. And at the moment, Coder Academy has a 98% positive rating on Course Report from the students, which is pretty much gobsmacking. Bootcamp style of learning is very practical. It's very hands-on. It's very unlike university. If any of you here this evening have gone through a university experience, it's going to be very different to that. Much more intense, much more hands-on, much more practical. There is an optional 4-week internship at the end of the bootcamp, which we'll talk about in a minute. Look, 80% of our graduates are hired within a matter of weeks of graduating, and 50% of our interns are hired on the day their internship finishes. So again, very successful connection with industry. We bring in industry experts and mentors to talk on the bootcamp to expand your horizons and to look. I think most people who go into the bootcamp think they want one thing. By the time they come out the other end with the experiences you've had, you may very well have changed your mind. So go in with an open mind is what I would suggest. And obviously we do everything we can to give students a really positive experience and really bond the group together into a really strong culture. This is the bit that those of you who haven't been to one of our previous webinars may need to focus on. So we have two different ways of presenting the bootcamp material. But in the end, the thing to understand is whether you go through fast track or whether you go through flex track, you will get the same information. It is the same syllabus, all right? It's just delivered, one in a more intensive fashion and one in a slightly less intensive fashion. So fast track, the next start date is the 16th of August, so just 4 weeks away. So if you're thinking of fast track, we need to talk fairly soon if we haven't done already. It is 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, engaged in the classroom, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 6 months. So it is super intense. Get in, go hard, get out into your first job. Just to clarify how it's delivered, Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, physically on campus. This is COVID allowing, right? So let's assume no COVID. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, delivered physically on campus. Thursday and Friday, delivered remotely, okay? But it is a 5-day commitment. Whereas flex track, the next intake is middle of October, so 2.5 months away. And that is 3 days a week for 10 months. Okay, so fast track, 5 days a week for 6 months, starting in August. Flex track, 3 days a week for 10 months, starting in October. The 3 days for flex track are Thursday and Friday on campus and Saturday delivered remotely. So that works for people who maybe can work part-time, you know, or who want a slightly less, sorry, didn't mean to do that, a slightly less intensive form of delivery. Yeah, so obviously we have campuses in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. The qualification is a higher education diploma of IT, doesn't matter which way you do the boot camp, fast or flex track. And the fee is for domestic students, $19,980, so effectively $20,000. If you're an international student, have a talk to us because depending on your situation, we might be able to do something about that fee. The important thing about it being a higher education course and an accredited course is that it opens up a couple of possibilities. One is if you're an Australian citizen, you get access to fee help. So this $19,980, the government will pay for you up front if you wish, and you then owe the government in the same way as HECS. You pay a little bit each month once the course is finished and once you're earning over a certain threshold. So the other thing that the Higher Education Diploma of IT does is it tells employers that you have really hit a certain mark. Yes. If you're unaccredited courses, the employer has no idea really what you've done and how good you are. Yes, Higher Education Diploma of IT, it's the highest level of coding training you can get in Australia. As I've said to various people over the phone recently, there is no employer anywhere that said, send me the guy who did the shortest, least intensive, lowest level of training that you can. No employer ever said that. They want the highest level of training, the best candidates, and that's what you'll be. The other thing that being a higher education diploma does is it opens up the possibility for you to go on and say do a computer science degree if you wish and get credits, recognition of prior learning for the units that you do in the boot camp. So one example, in Sydney, University of Technology, you get credits for the entire first year of their computer science degree. So yeah, it's worth it. Quick breakdown of what happens term by term. Term 1, front-end HTML and CSS. By the way, if you don't understand the jargon, don't worry. I'll try and de-jargonify it a little bit. So HTML and CS front-end coding languages, you build a portfolio website, you start Ruby programming, Ruby being one of the main languages, and you build a terminal application. Term 2, Ruby on Rails. Rails is to Ruby like steroids are to sprinters, right? They increase your performance, basically. So there's your coding language. Here's your supercharging in term 2. There's some discrete maths in there. Don't worry about the word maths. You learn how to deploy things, and you build what's called a two-sided marketplace. But all the way through here, you are building, you are making stuff. Yep. And everything that you make goes into a portfolio, which you've then got to show to any future employer. Term 3, JavaScript, another major coding language. You do React, which a lot of people are interested in. And your final project is to build a full stack web application for a real client. So you produce the real deal. And again, you've got that to show any future employer. The internship is optional, and it is not part of the bootcamp. It is an added value that we give to those students who graduate and who hit certain marks throughout the bootcamp. The internship is 4 weeks unpaid. So probably the way to think about it is as a 4-week interview. So the employer is looking at you and asking basic questions like, do you turn up on time? Are you a good guy? Do you fit with their culture? Do you know what you're doing? And when you get stuck, do you ask smart questions? Do you fit with their team? Yeah. You're looking at the employer and saying, is this the place that's going to teach me what I want? Is this the place that's going to take me where I want to go in my career and in my learning? So it's a 4-week opportunity for everyone to have a look at each other. As I say, 50% of our interns are employed on the day that their internship finishes. So again, very powerful connection with industry. Who works particularly well in our boot camp? So career changes, people who have no previous IT experience. I'm sure some of you are watching this evening fall into that category. Don't worry. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Depends on your level of motivation, not your level of previous IT experience. And you can maybe talk to Michael about that later. He's the one who gets you guys through. Upskillers, people who are been in the IT industry, are in the IT industry, maybe knock around with coders, but don't actually code themselves and want and see what coding can do, and want their career to move to the next level. And also uni students, grads, and some recent school leavers. Yeah, so uni students and graduates, we get, I guess, guys doing it in different ways. Some uni students who have gone to uni and realised that maybe isn't their thing, and they maybe leave their uni course and come and do the boot camp instead. Others who defer from uni and come and do the boot camp with leave themselves the opportunity to go back to uni again afterwards. And obviously also guys who have completed their uni and have realised that the thing that they lack is high-level coding skills. One of the things that I'm sure some of you watching this have probably gone through and done a computer science degree, and I'm sure you'll agree that computer science gives you lots of information, but what it doesn't do is teach you to code to a high level. And I think that surprises quite a few people who go and do computer science, so they then come and do the boot camp afterwards. Okay, scholarships. There's always a bit of interest around scholarships. We offer 1 scholarship per campus per intake. So there is a diversity scholarship offered, 1 in Melbourne for the fast track intake, 1 in Sydney for the fast track intake, and 1 in Brisbane for the fast track intake, and the same for the flex track intake. So 1 Melbourne, 1 Brisbane, 1 Sydney. The scholarship diversity, it is what you make it. You tell us your story, okay? What we are looking for are people who can maybe represent areas of the community which maybe otherwise might be thinking twice about getting into tech. We're looking for people who can be role models, who can tell their story well. If you are interested in the scholarship, and the scholarship is worth half the course fee, so basically $10,000, so well worth having. If you're interested in the scholarship, the thing to understand is you don't apply for the scholarship until you've been accepted into the course. So you apply for the course first, you go through the interview process, you get offered a place, then you can apply for the scholarship. For the fast track course, if you are thinking of applying for the scholarship, you probably need to get your application for the course in pretty soon. It might take us a few days to get through the interview process, then you apply for the scholarship, and the scholarship deadline is about 10 days to 2 weeks before the course starts, so maybe in about 2 weeks' time. So there's not an awful lot of time if you want to do that. Again, talk to Dallas or Henry or myself about that at some point over the phones if you need to. The application process, look, it's really a three-stage process. Normally it starts with a phone call where Dallas, Henry and I are sort of assessing whether we think you're going to make it. Then we encourage you to go through the application process. The application process doesn't need to take long. Just tell us a bit about yourself. And if all of that looks good, we'll get you in for interview. Okay. The interview is not technical. It is not asking you to solve technical issues. We don't, that's not what it's about. It's about your drive and your motivation. It's about why you are doing this. What we want is, if we have 25 people starting the course, we want 25 people to complete it. We are trying to filter in those people who are really going to thrive in a high intensity learning environment. Yeah. So that's what we're looking for, is your sense of drive, your sense of passion, and why you're doing this. Yeah. Assuming we offer you a place after the interview, that's when you can apply for the scholarship. And that's obviously also where you go through the usual enrollment process. And if you are going to apply for fee help, then that is done as part of the enrollment process. There is there's a question there where are you going to put any of your fees through fee help? Yes, go to the fee help portal. You sort it out there, okay? And then you're ready to go, either in August or in October. So that is the potted version of the presentation. You can obviously apply there. That's myself, Dallas, and Henry's contact details, although I'm sure they're going to be put into the chat as well. And we will probably be contacting you as a result of this anyway, just to see how you've gone. And one of the other things that I think is really well worth doing is just joining up some of our socials there, so you can hear stories from the students, you can check in what's going on, you can get an unfiltered view of what the boot camp is all about. So now I am going to unshare that, and we shall get on to, right, so if we could have probably Sarah first. So Sarah, can you jump on screen here? Lovely. So do you want to, you've unmuted, well done.
Yep, I'm all good.
Just tell me first, Sarah, did that all go through without another dropout on my part?
Yeah, it all went through. It was all fine.
Yeehaw. So, and I'm assuming, yes, I think the chat has been going a little bit mad, which is good. So guys, I'm going to hand over to Sarah in a second. She is going to spend a few minutes talking to you about her journey and show you some stuff. And if you've got any specific questions for Sarah, drop them into the chat now, all right? And when she's finished, I'm going to come back and maybe Henry and Dallas, and we're going to pose those questions of yours to Sarah that you ask in the chat. So, Sarah, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm all good. Hopefully the screen share works.
Okay, well, I'm going to drop myself out of here, okay, and it's all over to you.
Awesome. All right, let's see if we can get the screen share to work. Okay, share. Is that working? Is that showing the right screen?
Yes, beautiful.
We're seeing an intro. Perfect. Awesome. So as Brennan said, I'm Sarah. So I'm a Coder Academy student doing the fast track course in Brisbane. So today I'll just be talking a little bit about who I am, why I chose Coder Academy, my experience and journey over the last 5 and a bit months, and what I'm doing in class at the moment and what comes next. Please change. Perfect. So about me, I love travel, I love 3D printing, I love to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I actually run a martial arts dojo, which is a lot of fun. So in terms of my background, I graduated high school with a pretty good OP and immediately jumped into uni studying a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. I enjoyed it at first with all the problem solving and the collaboration, But after 2 years, I realized it just wasn't for me. At that point, I had no idea what to do. So I dropped out, got a full-time job doing data entry. And for another 2 years, I just tried to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. Cool. So why did I choose Coder Academy? So just before the start of the pandemic, I met my now partner and all of his friends who are pretty much all graduates of Coder. And they all have jobs that they love and were very encouraging about me joining the course because I didn't know what I wanted to do at all with my life. So I'd done a little coding in uni. I knew I somewhat enjoyed it, but I was still really hesitant at first. But over getting to know the guys, I watched this friend group who all met at Coder, who all were doing jobs they loved, and these jobs are secure throughout the pandemic. And it looked pretty fun. Like, I thought about what I really hated about uni. So I found it hard to make friends because I didn't live in the city. I sat in a lecture theatre with 200 people and listened to a professor talk at me rather than with me. And even in my tutorials, there weren't enough tutors to go around. So you're pretty much on your own. That was my experience at least. So Coder Academy, on the other hand, seemed to tick all the boxes. Problem solving, it had the collaboration that I loved in engineering. It was a classroom setting where students actually interacted with the teacher rather than just get talked at. And obviously there was a promise of strong, lasting friendships, evident from the friends that I've made so far. So to top it all off, I could be in and out of this course in 6 months and start a career that would have taken me 4 years to get at uni. So that was just like something really a foreign concept to me at the time. So I decided to test the waters. I did a free online course just for a little bit, and I did fall in love with it. So I saved up, applied for Coder, quit my job, and I'm so glad I did because choosing Coder Academy was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Okay. So the road so far, my journey. So first day, you sit down and you get given what they call a swag bag, which I found quite amusing, full of Coder Academy merch, which was pretty cool. And in that first week, we learned some basics of that HTML and CSS that we heard in the presentation with Brendan. And then we were thrust into our first assignment, which was our portfolio. Since then, I've learned so much that it's hard to believe that it's been less than 6 months. It's crazy. When I started this course, I barely knew the fundamentals of programming, and a bunch of my classmates had never even touched code at all. Since then, I've made a Tetris app, a two-sided marketplace, and now I'm on my final assessment piece, which is a group project where we have to build a full stack website for a real life employer, as Brendan said as well. So my team is making a real estate management app that improves the communication between rental tenants and property managers. So tenants can send maintenance requests, view diary with all their inspections and lease renewals, and view all their rental documents and things like that. So we're just doing the front end of that, the back end of that, all of the functionality ground up. So it's crazy how fast it's gone. I've made some awesome friends. The whole class gets along. We have inside jokes, parties at the end of term, and study sessions on days without lessons. Our teacher, Matt, is amazing, and our TA, Glenn, is the most dedicated educator I've ever met. And I've met a lot of them. I went to uni, and that these guys are crazy good at what they do and really care about us and how we go in our course. So every step of the way, I've had the support of the teachers and my peers. I'm so grateful that I chose this path for what I've learned and the friends I've made, and it's been worth every cent. So if anyone's thinking, 20 grand is a lot of money, it's truly, truly worth it. I promise you. I promise you. So where from here? I only have 2 weeks left of the course. At this stage, it's pretty much apply, and finish my final assessment. I should have been applying for the last 3 weeks, but I was sick, so I'm a little behind on that. But I haven't quite landed an internship yet. But I'll be speaking with the partnerships team, who are awesome and super supportive. So fingers crossed, something comes my way. So far, though, although I haven't gotten anything, I do know a bunch of my classmates are actually talking to potential employers at the moment. And one of my teammates on my final project has actually just landed a great fully remote job for after she graduates. So she's actually going to be moving to America, working completely remote, which is so awesome. So overall, everything's going great, and I'm excited to see what comes next. Cool. Thank you very much for listening to me. Any questions?
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Dallas, good. Whilst that was going on, Sarah, honestly, that was tremendous.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. Dallas, what particular questions were being fired in there that Sarah could maybe help on?
We had a couple thrown in there. One of the things that James asked is, what is the most challenging thing for you during the boot camp? Or what has been the most challenging thing? Maybe it's right now. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. Because, you know, throughout the course, it's so fast paced that everything is challenging, but it's a reasonable amount of challenge. You're not getting pushed so far out of your comfort zone that you're drowning. It doesn't ever feel like that. I think the most challenging thing for me was if you miss maybe 2 lessons. For this course, it's only 2 lessons. If you're doing a uni degree, you've just missed like 2 weeks of content. So you've really got to keep on top of your study and just make sure that, you know, you've got your stuff in order. But it's really easy to catch up. All the lessons are recorded, so it's super easy to fix it. But if you miss it, you have to catch up. Otherwise, you'll be stuck.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I can definitely see like a lot of students that I've spoken to have sort of advised me that, you know, you'd be surprised how much you learn in just like one month. Yeah, it just absolutely blows you away.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for that. And another one is from Abdul, and he says, could you please talk about your final assessment? Is that something that you could maybe elaborate on?
Yeah, I couldn't do a walkthrough because we're actually literally just on the documentation at the moment. So we haven't even started the coding. So in the planning phase, but yeah, it's as I said in my presentation, it's just a property management application. So it's tenant focused, to make sure that the tenant can communicate with the property manager, because often a frustration is that, you know, a tenant has to only talk through email and it's really slow and it's awful. So normally we'd have to engage with an actual employer and communicate with them. But because of COVID, we're allowed to make the app ourselves, like make up the company and go from there. So we decided on the property management, where we can show a bunch of our skills. We're just sending maintenance requests, things like that.
Perfect. Yeah, good. And so just a little bit of elaboration on that one. Essentially, guys, with the final assessment, you can, you know, usually there will be a company that, you know, you sort of like talk to, and it's a real company and it's a real job. And basically they could be asking for, you know, they could be asking for an application. Maybe they want someone to revamp their website. It really could be anything when it comes down to it. So every single one's going to be different. It's made up of a group of you guys, and it's the only group assessment actually. But yeah, so anything else we got here? Andrew asks, how did you find the workload, Sarah, on the fast track? I think you kind of you did actually answer that moments ago, but yeah, feel free to shoot.
Yeah,
well,
so
Sarah, can I just jump in on that? I know we get a lot of people wondering whether, you know, should I go for flex track because I'm worried that fast track might be too intense. So I think that's where the question's coming from.
Yeah, of course. So, you know, it's a full-time workload. You know, it's a full-time course, so it's full-time. But it's really not that bad, to be honest. I had, although not a great understanding, I had a little bit of experience with the fundamentals from that free online course I did. So the first semester is fairly chill. You're just learning, you're getting into it. They don't throw you in the deep end straight away. In terms of the way the course is structured, it really helps as well. So the first 3 days are on campus, as was said with the fast track, and the last 2 days are at home, which means you have activities to do on Thursday and Friday, but you can also go over the content that you just learned, you know, cover gaps in your knowledge that you think you need. So even though it's quite intense, you do have that time to go over it again and make sure it's all right. And you've also got your TA, who's super awesome. I'm sure the other campuses are too, have really awesome TAs who know who know their stuff and can give you kind of a summarized idea and give you an understanding as well if you're struggling.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And just to reiterate what Brennan said, if you're looking to hold a part-time or casual job while studying, then flex track is for you. Look, fast track, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's a full-time job in itself, guys. So probably don't even really consider jumping into it if you're going to be working at the same time. So cool. And we've got one more here from Lucas. How does your experience compare to working as an engineer so far? What makes it more interesting? What's the biggest difference?
Yeah, so I didn't get to work as an engineer because I only studied for that 2 years. But in terms of why I've chosen and kind of fallen in love with coding over engineering was in engineering, it's very structured, right? So you have a lot of rules that you have to follow. Like you have to read a book this thick to do a 2x2 slab of cement type of thing. It's crazy. But with coding, you really have that flexibility. You can use your creativity. There's always more than one way to solve a problem. So you can really challenge yourself to do whatever you want within the bounds of what you've been asked to do, you know? So I'm doing a final project. I can implement that so many different ways. It's a challenge to me to make the most efficient way with my own creativity, and everyone has their own way of coding. So I find that super interesting. It's not just as structured and boring as engineering, pretty much.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Awesome. We actually got one more question that's come through from Raymond. How have you managed the fast track course with your personal life?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I didn't have a job. I've been living off savings for the last 6 months. But in terms of the rest of my personal life, look, I run my martial arts dojo every Monday and Wednesday, and even with that extra commitment, it's not too bad at all. As long as obviously it depends on the person, how fast you pick up on things, your prior experience, but in general, it's pretty chill. Like you can really work with whatever you've got going on. Cool,
awesome, magical.
I like that Raymond went straight for the personal life. Good work.
Cool.
There's a series more questions there, but maybe we'll hold some of them till afterwards because we've got to get moving.
Yeah, I'll just let everyone know that yeah, we do have tons of questions about the bootcamp itself, you know, towards Brandon and the rest of the enrollment team, but we will touch on it at the end because yeah, you guys are asking tons of questions.
Good. But look, we won't miss them. We'll come back to them at the end. But Sarah, can I just thank you very much for that? And we will say cheerio for now. Are you able to hang around to maybe field some questions later?
Yeah,
Good
definitely.
stuff.
No worries.
All right, beautiful.
All right.
So I'm going to ask Sarah to disappear.
Cool.
And we will bring Alex up on the screen. Hopefully he's home. If he's not, we might go to Michael. Are you there, Alex? Here he is.
G'day.
Are you back at home?
Almost.
Oh.
I'm out the front of a restaurant, actually.
Tell me this. Would you rather I went to Michael and came back to you?
No, this is perfect. This is
100%
perfect.
fine.
Anytime,
Right.
anywhere. Let's go.
Okay. All right. Well, so Alex, as I said at the very beginning, you can introduce yourself as to all the various things you've done prior to coming to coding, but you finished the Fast Track Bootcamp nearly a year ago, and you're now out in industry. So look, I will hand over to you, and you go for your life. All right.
Yeah, right. I'll just get up my presentation also. Let me just share my screen real quick. Sorry, guys. I won't be a second.
What are you getting to eat?
I was going to get some chicken wings. As you do.
Are you in the car at the moment or what?
No. I'm sitting out the front of a restaurant.
Right. in Brisbane?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I just need to quit and reopen Zoom real quick. 1 second.
You do what you got to do. Well, in that case, I'm just going to have a quick squiz. Oops, am I on? Yeah. I'm just going to have a quick squiz through some of the questions and see if there's other stuff that we could do. Discuss and negotiate what you build for your final project. Anything else there, Dallas, that you think is worth us? Oh, one of the things that I did see, and it always comes up, is the mention of the word maths. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I think some people, not everyone, of course, but some people have a real phobia about maths. And the other thing I think is there is maybe a thing out there which is definitely not true, that in order to be a decent coder, you have to be good at maths. that is definitely not the case, and the level of maths that you have to do here is not something to be worried about. Would you agree, Dallas?
Yeah, for sure. So like, I guess you have to think of it from the perspective of like, the discrete mathematics, which you're going to learn is essentially you're going to be taught to, build algorithms. Okay. So yeah, it can be a little bit complex, but the only sort of maths that you sort of skills that you need to sort of come in, like, to the course with is, we ask you to brush up on, your basic like sort of multiplication and division, and we ask you to think about stuff like to the power of, so numbers with like a little 2 on the corner, those sort of things, and also the order, what's it called, the order of something. When basically you've got a big long sum and then there's like a section that has brackets in there and you got to complete the brackets first, and yeah, basically. Order of operations. Yes, thank you, Philip. Yeah, so basically those are the 3 things that you just need to brush up on. Have a bit of a play around with those sort of things, and we can actually throw a link in, I think, soon for you to check out. But they're the sort of things that we ask you to sort of brush up on, and once you sort of know that stuff, then everything else sort of just falls into place.
And I suppose the one thing that I do know is lots of people who have worried about maths on the way in, once they're in there, it's sorted.
100%.
Okay, don't worry, you can do it. So anyway, without further ado, we'll go back to Alex. So I'm going to mute me, Alex, and you're on.
Okay, you guys have my screen? You can see everything?
Yep, can see it.
Okay, okay, perfect. So yeah, my name's Alex. I'm a graduate of Coder Academy. I've done a fair bit in the past. I was in the military. I owned a restaurant for a while. A qualified barber. I studied web development at TAFE as well as Coder Academy. So yeah, I guess we just want to talk about why Coder Academy, what it's sort of done for me. I mean, like when I was 27, I chose to study at Coder Academy because I thought, if I go back to uni, it's going to take me so long to finish it. And to be honest, like in hindsight, it was probably like a really good decision to choose the fast track course. The current tech that we learned at Coder Academy was Ruby on Rails, MongoDB, Postgres, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Express, and React. Another big thing was the opportunities that it sort of opened up for me. So, it gave me opportunities that I never really thought were even possible. Like, the teachers were incredible. The structure was really good. And yeah, it's helped me sort of succeed in my career of choice. So at the moment, I'm working at Entain, which is the parent company of like Ladbrokes and Neds. Essentially, I make gambling software. I'm a native engineer at the moment. You might have seen before the person who mentioned what that type of mathematics before. That was a guy named Philip, who was also in Coder Academy. He came to see what this was all about. So we've got 2 graduates on the call tonight. So yeah, Entain is, essentially it's a big betting company. I work with Vue.js, Golang, AWS, TypeScript, React Native, Docker, Kubernetes, and Cypress. Some things I made at Coder Academy. So let's open up my portfolio. You guys can still see this? I'm going to take the silence as a yes. So a part of...
You can see it.
Okay, perfect. A part of assessment, we have to make a portfolio. And essentially, this was the portfolio that I made in just HTML and CSS, like all these animations with CSS, no JavaScript, which was pretty cool. This is not me, as you can see. It's just a generic image. And yeah, all these little images lead to sort of things I made at the academy. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I'm here to answer as many questions as you guys have. Not as exciting.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You've obviously got supper on your mind, which is fair enough. Dallas, do you want to jump back on here and tell me anything that's come through there that we can.
I think Henry's going to run this one, but I'm going to jump off. But what I will say, guys, is if you do have any questions, absolutely ask Alex. He is a gem. He's a treat. No, he's actually got a lot of knowledge, and he works for a really cool company, and he's a badass dev. So if you have any questions, ask Alex.
Henry, give us some of this. Select a couple of questions there for us.
Sure. Yeah, we got so far just few for Alex, but there are lots and lots of questions that were coming for the last 10 minutes. So one of them would be, do you design as per Aristocrat Gaming? And I will leave that to you, Alex or Brendan.
Do you design as per Aristocrat Gaming? I actually don't have an answer for that. I'm not really sure what the question is. Aristocrat Gaming.
So this came from i.CODE. Feel free, i.CODE, to provide more information in the chat. I'm sure we're going to get to the bottom of it for you.
Aristocrat. Oh, okay. Probably because it's the gambling company. Aristocrat is the sort of poker machine.
Yeah, no, we don't actually do poker machines. So we handle like sports betting, horse betting, and sort of anything that you can do to put a punt on. So as far as like pokey machines and stuff go, I think there's 2 companies in Australia that handle that, and I'm pretty sure they're like primarily Australian companies. So yeah, the company I work for is actually based in the UK. So it's a UK holding, and they've got some companies based in Australia. I'm pretty sure they actually own heaps of companies though. It's massive.
Actually, one of the things that came to my mind as you were going through that presentation, Alex, is now you're working in industry, you're using languages that you were not trained on in the boot camp. Is that correct?
Correct.
How did you find that transition? Because it's always a question that we get is, how do you choose what languages you teach in the boot camp, and how relevant are they to industry, and how easy is it to transition into another language if you haven't actually,
Well, that was a really big thing for me. I think when I was doing the boot camp, I had someone come in. His name was Ash from Sortle. He was the CEO of Sortle or something like that. And he essentially said, like, in the course, you'll get a very sort of shallow understanding of all these different texts and all of these different things, but you really want to focus on one thing. So for me, I sort of focused on JavaScript. And if anyone's ever written anything in JavaScript before, it's kind of like, pushing a square piece into a cylindrical object, like you can do everything with it. It's not necessarily great, but you can achieve everything. So that was sort of the language that I based all of the other languages off, so it was easy to learn as much JavaScript as I could and then move over to say Vue or something which is based on JavaScript. My main thing now is I'm a front-end engineer, so I don't really do like a lot of Golang. I don't really do like a lot of Python or anything like that. I'm primarily JavaScript.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Alex, for that. Another question was from Timothy. That was about, can you please comment on the Brisbane environment for finding work after the course? How difficult was it for you? I'm assuming you must have been pretty fast with getting a position, but can you tell us a little bit more about the process?
So yeah, I was super lucky. I got my internship through Coder Academy. They sorted it all out for me. I was even more lucky because my internship was actually paid. So that was awesome. But as far as I know, all the devs that I talk to, like there's not enough devs out there. There's so much work. If you're willing to sort of see this industry like a craft that you can sort of hone and perfect, you're gonna do really, really well. Like, because there's not enough React developers out there. I saw someone mention before that they were interested in mobile development and asking if we were doing mobile development. If you get good at native engineering, you're always going to have a job. Like, and the money is good.
Good to know. Now, partially you actually already answered this question, but there was one from Raymond. He wanted to know a little bit more about, do you feel that based on the course, what you have done with us, do you feel that all the skill set learned has been used eventually? or would there be parts that you feel, okay, I didn't actually need this bit after?
Kind of a tough question. As I said before, you know, in the course, you get a very shallow sort of understanding of how things work. You know, like I think the biggest takeaway that I've sort of learned in the industry is it's less about the coding and it's more about understanding paradigms and just problem solving. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to get into an industry that's purely problem solving. Everything we do is just like, we've got a problem, let's fix it. And the way that we fix it is we implement code, or sometimes we even delete code. So sometimes you just got to get rid of it, man.
That's it. Now, there was a few questions actually from several people regarding Ruby on Rails, Python. I'm sure you have an opinion about this because I find that most people working in programming, they do. What do you think is...
Henry, you just went blank there for a minute, I think. Just do that one.
Perfect. So there was few questions from people regarding Python versus Ruby on Rails. I'm sure you as a programmer will have an answer or opinion about this. Could you tell us a little bit more? What do you think between Ruby on Rails? Particularly, do you think that it's a old-fashioned program? Because that was one of the questions. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think people need to sort of move away from this idea of like, I only do TypeScript or I only do Python. These like languages are tools, you know, and they're sort of tools for solving problems essentially. Like let's say you need to create a service that has some sort of concurrency or something. You're probably going to use Golang, right? Because it's a new tech, it has concurrency, and it does stuff that JavaScript or Python won't actually do. So yeah, it goes back to, I should learn this one language and just stick to this one thing. It's like, the industry changes so quick. And really, you kind of want to give try to keep an overview of everything. But as I was saying before, like, you know, like the languages change, but the paradigms don't. They're all pretty much the same.
I think this is really important, and Brendan and Dallas will agree. This is one of the most frequent questions. People always want to know what programming language should I actually be spending my time on? And I think you really answered it well, because the question shouldn't be what language, but the skills in general, the programming skills to be learning. And then it's going to be much easier when you have to upgrade yourself with upskilling with another language. Now, I think
Actually,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
Can I just jump in there for a sec? Because there's another question that we get quite a lot, which would be interesting to get your take on it, Alex. There's, you know, Coder Academy is the most intensive training and it's the longest boot camp there is in Australia. Lots of the other boot camp providers do 3-month courses, whereas our shortest one is the fast track, the 6-month one. How do you think you would have felt if after 3 months you were told you're ready to go out into the workplace, off you go? How prepared would you have been at the 3-month mark as opposed to the 6-month mark?
3 months wouldn't have cut it, to be honest. Not at all, to be completely honest. Like, I think you would skim over some incredibly important things, like, you know, how to use your command line, or just even sort of like how to use Git, because that's super important, especially if you want to work at a company. There needs to be a form of collaboration, and the only way is to sort of use Git.
And just another question on a similar line, which came from Luke. He actually asked it of Sarah, but we can ask you. Did you find you were having to put in extra hours at night and on weekends to keep up with the fast track workload? Because I know pretty much everyone who goes to one of the 3-month boot camps says they are working, they're in class all day and then they're up till 4 a.m. trying to catch up with all the stuff. What was the workload like after hours in your case, and other guys on your course maybe?
Well, I've kind of sort of got like an obsessive nature. So a lot of the times I was just coding because it was something that I was super interested in. But as far as like, I need to stay up until 2 a.m. to understand this thing, that didn't really happen, to be honest. Like, I think like as far as your teachers and mentors go, there's a lot of people to sort of lean on. especially if you're not understanding things. Plus, you know, like they always do like the code challenges and stuff, and a lot of that's really good to sort of understand logic or how things sort of work. And
Great.
yes, I would recommend getting a Mac for coding. They're just so much easier than Linux.
But you don't have to. Is that
But
correct?
you don't have to. They're expensive.
All right, another one from Timothy. Alex, from your experience, is there an emphasis in Brisbane for certain types of programmers, preferred ways that companies like to be contacted, or preferred certain types of portfolios? This question definitely goes a little bit to what the companies are looking for. Feel free to say more general, but is there anything that you have been able to observe over the time for that specific city?
Not really, to be honest. Like nothing's really stood out where I've been like, oh, these guys only want people to do trunk-based development, or like you got to rebase everything. Like as far as I know, most places will train you on the job, to be completely honest. Like no one's yeah, the thing about the tech industry is everyone is so friendly and everyone is so eager to like teach you things that it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming how sort of nice the entire industry is. Like I've never met one person where I've been like, oh, that person sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Everyone is so eager. Like you could Google how to learn JavaScript, and I promise you there's going to be over 1 million articles on how to learn JavaScript. That's how eager people are in tech and how passionate people are in tech. It's pretty cool. It's cool to be a part of.
Great.
Can I just ask one more thing, which sort of, I think two of these questions come together. Can you talk about your transition from after the camp to the internship and then into full-time employment?
Okay.
Were there any issues there? And then there's another question which sort of deals with the same thing. Did you feel job ready after the course?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer that question from the back of did I feel job ready? When I rolled in, I thought, I'm gonna kill this. This is easy as. But the problem was I was always writing code for myself. I was always creating my own projects and building them up myself, you know, like I knew where everything was. But then I've moved to this organization that's worth $20 billion, who has 40 million lines of code or something like that. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But as I said before, this is a craft. You have to think of it as a craft. Like coding is a craft. The more you do it, the better you're going to be. It's like, yeah, it's like honing your sword, you know, like all your tools or something like that. But yeah, as far as job ready, I did feel job ready, but it was still overwhelming.
Great. Now, one more I see for you, Alex, and then we're gonna move on. Is an engineering team, how many languages do you have to master? From your experience again, how many languages are you able to program in, or how many platforms?
That's a hard question, to be completely honest. And I think that really boils down to the individual. Like, I know a lot of people in the industry that are like, okay, I am a native engineer and I will not touch backend. I will only do native engineering. So they will primarily just focus on something like React Native or Swift or something like that. Whereas we do have some full stack developers who, you know, they handle everything. They do some work with cloud, they do some work on the back end, they do some work on the front end. So really, I think that actually depends on the individual and what you want out of your career. If you just want to do front end, then the business isn't going to say no. They want people to be like guns at one thing, because that's an asset. You know, I think you would prefer a few people who are really good at one thing than a bunch of people that were okay at a bunch of things. So I think that also goes back to my point of find one language and master it and then move on to other things.
That's I think that's a really good advice. Can I ask you, I think Brendan has for a moment disappeared, so he's gonna be back in a second. But in the meantime, can I just ask you, Sarah earlier spoke about the experience in a classroom at Code Academy. She was mentioning actually something really interesting. While she was studying with us, she didn't feel that she's being talked at.
Right.
It's a more collaborative process.
Yeah.
Did you feel the same? And if you did, can you tell us a little bit more? Do you feel like it's reflecting more to the work environment that you have experienced after finishing the course when you were working in an organization?
Yeah, I think it sort of goes back to what I was saying before about how people are super passionate about this industry. Like I also had Glenn as my teacher's assistant. I had Matt as my main teacher. I'm not sure if he's still there, but oh man, like they were just such nice people. Their enthusiasm and just like, I don't know, they were just kind. They were just super kind, you know, even if it was super trivial things like, oh, I don't know what a variable is, you know, they would sit you down and they would make sure that you understood it, you know, even if it was really sort of high level stuff that was trivial to even ask. But yeah, as everyone at Coder Academy was great. Like
this is a great point. And I think for everyone, it's really important to remember before you undertake this type of project, studying whatever version, the 6 or 10 months version, you have to remember that it's gonna seem really daunting at the same time because there is so much for you to learn. And it's sometimes really hard to imagine how quickly you can progress.
Yeah.
But because of the way how it's delivered, you can see from Sarah and Alex, you actually are able to create massive progress in such a short period of time and then eventually be ready. So I think this is really good point from you, Alex. Thanks so much. I think that's pretty much at this stage all from you. I'm sure there might be more questions at the end. If you don't mind to stick around for a little bit, that would be awesome.
No worries.
And now back to you, Brendan.
Thank you. Thank you. I did my little disappearing act there for a moment. So that was great, Alex. Thank you. And Alex will be back later to answer any other questions. And if Michael, if you can make yourself available on screen, here he is. How are you?
Very well.
So look, I don't really need to do any chit chat around you, Michael. I think you can introduce yourself. Just as I said at the beginning, Michael is one of the lead trainers at Coder Academy, and he's currently training the Sydney fast track. So Michael, talk about what you've done, where you've come from, why you're doing this, what makes a good coder, the changes people go through as they go through the boot camp. Yep.
Absolutely.
And yep, beautiful.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Brendan. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. Super excited to be able to speak to you. Coder Academy is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we really encourage you to consider it. So my LinkedIn profile is there. I've been with Coder Academy for about 4 years, but I'm also a CTO, an engineering director and manager, actually hands-on as well. And so I provide a lot of the practical industry experience, not only scholastic, but practitioner knowledge to students. I've spent much of my career in Australia, but also in Silicon Valley, in California, and Silicon Valley in New York, spent over 12 years there. And that was a complete experience, fantastic experience. And I recently came back to Sydney and did an MBA at Sydney University. That's a great course. And have been fortunate enough to join the Coder Academy team. So what I want to just talk about in this little presentation is what you will create by doing this course and the journey you'll go through. And we talk about it, you know, this is a higher education diploma of IT, but what is the nuts and bolts of that? What do you get? Well, of course, we start off with computer code, syntax, JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, all that sort of stuff. But can I suggest to you, that's probably the least important thing, because exactly what Alex said and exactly what Sarah said, computer programming languages come and go. So we use the top frameworks, the top languages, but there's no expectation that you're going to be using these languages for the rest of your career. They're the basis for going ahead. More importantly are the tools that you're going to use. The terminal, the source control, a thing called Git, even the text editor. Are you using VS Code or Vim? The test framework you're going to be using to automate your tests, but also what is known as the build pipeline. And exactly as Alex said, coding is one thing. Coding by yourself is one thing, but coding a commercial application in a team where people are paying means a totally different thing than a hobby. So we have this thing called a built pipeline. What it takes from inception, from an idea.
Hi, Michael. I'm so sorry to jump in and interrupt you. Can I just ask you, I think you have a presentation that you will be sharing.
It's not coming up. Yeah, sorry, it's not coming up.
No worries at all.
Thank you for
Thanks
that.
so much.
Let's go back. I pressed the button, but it didn't appear. How's it go now?
It's
Yep,
perfect.
it's there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Anyway, continuing on. So looking at the tools and that build pipeline that gets created as you from inception to release of a product. So that we spend a lot of time on that. We also look at how to learn. And what I mean by that is computer syntax, like I say, computer languages come and go. I have learned so many languages in my career, but each are incremental. Same to the tools in the build pipeline. They change over time, not so much as the computer syntax as the computer code. But what's most important is, well, new technology comes. How do I learn about this new technology? What are the authoritative sources? How do I critically think about the source of information in front of me and the veracity of it? So we spend a lot of time on that. And finally, developing an application is actually thinking about what is happening in the analog world, what is happening, the problem statement in the analog world, and converting that into the machine in front of us in the digital, on this digital machine. And what is the frameworks and what are the models to do that? So it's just not about computer code, it's about a way of thinking. It's a really, you know, of course it's a high education diploma of IT, but really what we want to get into is how to think like an engineer, not like a chemical engineer or a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, but how to think like a digital engineer. What we want you to come away with is be able to take your knowledge and apply it in your career for here on in. No matter what technologies come, you'll be able to approach new technologies as they come available. And exactly how Alex has said, you'll be able to take this knowledge and create a niche, become specialized on a single technology of your choosing, and you know, and really build a career. So this systems thinking, what does this mean? Well, systems thinking, being a software engineer means being employed, but taking capital and using these models, these processes, and these tools, your knowledge, your brain, and convert it into a digital asset. That's what the industry is, taking capital, converting it into a digital asset with the knowledge, tools, and process that you've learned. So the couple of things that we want to look at is, you know, in the real world, what are the abstractions? What is a client? What is an order? What is a product? What is a transaction? What is a credit card? What is a payment? Define what those things are. Define what data makes up those things and the data types and how that thing evolves over time. We also want to look at the relationships and interconnectivity of all these things, how they operate over series of time. And importantly, in modern technology, is what is called asynchrony. Things don't always happen together at once in your application. Things may come concurrently or consecutively. So we use these tools, computer programming languages, the build pipeline, to create this thinking like an engineer. So exactly as Alex said, with this knowledge, you can then specialize on whatever technology you so desire. So specifically, the journey you're going to go through, you're going to have lots of projects, lots of fun projects. But I just want to make it very clear that these projects are just not for assessment. They're for your portfolio. They're for your sharing to future employers, for future teams to quantify and qualify your knowledge. And you know, really, when you go to that interview, when you go to that internship, the person sitting on the other side of their desk, the engineering manager or the CTO, wants to employ you, they really do. But they have risk involved in employing a new engineer to the industry. So a big part of Coder Academy is removing that risk for them on their behalf, removing that risk to make a decision to employ you. And the assessments and the projects add to your portfolio to reduce that risk. So we spend a lot of time doing projects. And those projects, step by step, leading to your portfolio, to your internship, and eventually employment. So the very first thing is that what we call the terminal app. We spend some time on a very basic app that helps you understand abstractions and data types and interrelationships and get those tooling. And then we do front end. And you saw Alex's portfolio. That was a result of that front end. And really that is for publication to future employers, to future team members, to quantify your knowledge. And then we build a transactional system. We use Ruby plus a framework called Rails, plus a technology called SQL, Structured Query Language. That's database language to query data out of the database. But what this comes away with is a transactional system, something you can build to show that you can manage data, you can manage transactions. Building an application by your own hand will mean that data won't be lost. And then we build a full stack, bringing all this together with a technology, like we said, React.js plus APIs. API means application programming interface, interfacing to complex backend systems. And so all this together, brings a well-rounded engineer. But there's one thing missing, and that is getting it in deployment and production so the great world can see your efforts. Because everything above that is just a hobby, it's just a science experiment. So until it goes to deployment, goes into production, goes into a live system, that it actually becomes real. So we make sure for your portfolio that you're into production. And that results in you becoming a commercial engineer and quantifies to future employers your abilities to deliver. Great stuff, absolutely great stuff. So this is what you will create going into this course and what you will learn, and the techniques, models, tools, processes. But I think this slide deck is actually misnamed. And at the end of each cohort, after every 6 months of the fast track, we actually say to all the students, they've gone through it. It's not what you will create, it's what will you create? Because you will have been empowered to put a dent in the universe. As Alex says, it's a marvelous course where you can actually change the future and really help people. On that note, I think I've come to the end of the presentation, Brendan. I'll hand back to you.
Whooshka, you went out on a bang there, Michael. Liked it.
Goodness.
We are changing the world here, people.
It is. It absolutely is. You put a dent in the universe.
Yeah, brilliant.
You're creating something that's never existed before. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Michael. Can you unshare yourself? Thank you very much. Henry, are you coming to join us? And Alex still around, or did he head off?
Alex bailed. He had wings.
So. Okay.
I know it
and
is.
Is Sarah around?
Sarah's around, I think. Yeah.
Yep, I'm still here.
Come on board.
There she is. There she is. Actually, Michael, there was one thing that struck me as you were talking there, and I'll be fairly sure, be fairly relevant to a lot of people here. What level of tech knowledge? I think everybody thinks that when they come to a boot camp like this, when they first start it, a lot of people feel insecure about where they're starting from. And do I need to know more before I start? I have people on the phone who say to me, oh, I'll join in a year's time because I think I need to do a year's study before I join the boot camp. Well, mate, why are you joining the boot camp? But it's a common anxiety, I think. how much technical skill does somebody need to be able to actually start the boot camp? And I suppose the other question is, how much is it what they come in with technically that matters, and how much is it what they come in with from a motivational point of view?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. It's surprising that the people who have preconception that it's all about technology and technical stuff, we have to swipe the blackboard clean, because it's a way of thinking of the world. It's a way of thinking of the analog world using tools and processes to create a digital asset. And the technical stuff of it, you know, you can learn from a book. It's really creating something out of nothing in the analog world on the digital tool we have in front of us. So you're not going to get that from a book. You know, it's a journey of a path that someone has to show you that this is the way of thinking, you know, this is the way of thinking. The industry itself, you know, moves very quickly. If you don't like a piece of technology, wait 3 weeks, you know, and you dare not go on a holiday more than 4 weeks because everything goes out of date, or the knowledge you have. So waiting a year, I would highly not advise, because you learn something and think, well, that was a waste of time because it's happened. What we learn here in Coder Academy are the fundamentals, which don't change over time. They're the way of thinking, the models, the processes, and the tools. So I don't feel there's any advantage in waiting. Just, I'm going to learn more technology and that's going to make me, but no, it's models that count. I'll give you a little story. I was worked in the US for 12 years and worked for a company in Silicon Valley, one of the leading companies in Silicon Valley. And I was at the boardroom of the Bank of America building in San Francisco, overlooking the San Francisco Bay. You could see Golden Gate Bridge and everything, you know, just out of the movie. And everyone around that table was engineers, and from Cornell and Stanford and Berkeley and Brown and, you know, everyone, you know, very intimidating, quite frankly. I thought, these people are very smart, very smart. But it dawned on me, they're just using models. They're not talking syntax. They're not talking computer programming languages. They're talking models to bring the analog world into the digital machine that we have in front of us. And once you have those models, it's not intimidating.
Yeah. And what about the level of drive and motivation that someone needs to?
Good question, yeah. So this course is not the end, it's a start. This industry changes rapidly. And because of that, there's gold in them hills, you know? You can specialize on a single technology. So self-actualization and self-motivation are a big thing, because whatever technology, myself included, after 30 years in this industry, we're all in the same boat. Sarah and I are exactly the same boat. It's just that maybe 30 years difference, but there is exactly the same boat, because it moves so fast that you want to be energized and self-actuated to continuously learn. But that's a good thing. You can specialize and really make a career out of something. Exactly like Sarah said, there's only so many ways you can pour a slab of concrete. Not so in this industry. I think Sarah would agree, like even the 6 months Sarah's been doing the course, new technologies have come. There is a site called Hacker News. If anything, you're on this in the chat, it's called news.ycombinator.com. And that is the go-to place for software engineers it's a bit gossip, but it's bleeding edge in the technologies that are coming through. And I consult that daily to keep up. Yeah. So to answer your question, Brendan, that thirst and hunger and willing to learn and continuously learn for the rest of your career is a big positive. Yeah.
Also, to just to touch on it as well, imposter syndrome, right? Everyone has it, and people still have it, like day to day. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's relevant to other industries as well, but it's massive in tech. So, you're always going to feel a little bit behind the 8 ball, like, because there's always going to be something else there for you to learn. So yeah, don't spend a year doing self-study. Come on board. And if you have any questions, give us a call and we can talk to you about it, because yeah, it's massive.
All right, let's throw back to the chat then. Dallas, Henry, stuff in there that we didn't get time to ask Sarah before, or that we haven't addressed yet, that Sarah and or Michael could add a little bit of heft to?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick off with something from Nicholas from early days in i.CODE. I'm doing a Bachelor of Applied Information Technology at uni. Is the bootcamp something I should do afterwards or during my study? Does anyone want to touch on that?
Probably wouldn't do, like maybe on Flex Track you could try, but honestly, the workload that you're getting in Coder Academy isn't really compatible with doing other study at the same time. It's a diploma of its own, so it'd be like doing a dual degree, I suppose, but at a more intense rate, because we're condensing this course into the 10 months or the 6 months. So it's still just so much that I wouldn't recommend doing pretty much anything like that while doing Coder as well.
Yeah, it's
we have had people do Flex Track whilst doing another degree, but you've got to be keen, right?
Yeah.
And also you've got to be able to shift your uni schedule to fit with the Thursday, Friday, Saturday days. But what I think, what I've noticed is we get people who, if you're doing computer science or IT, and you get halfway through and you realize I'm not actually learning much code here, you can do the boot camp and then go back and complete your uni with now really good coding skills, and that is not going to hurt you at all at uni, I would suggest. Would you agree there, Mike?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I think I did touch on it briefly in the chat for Nicholas, but yeah, look, we suggest you to come on board and do the boot camp first if you have that opportunity, because essentially all it's going to do is, we hope that, you do the boot camp, you get into industry, and then you don't have to worry about doing any more study, because you're going to learn everything else on the job. And as Michael, spoke about before, there's so much learning. And also Alex said as well in his talk, you get into the job and then they're going to teach you a whole bunch of stuff as well. So the learning never stops. And so we hope that you come and join us for a boot camp, do an internship, and then break into the industry itself and save yourself a couple of years of uni. But, in saying that, if you wanted to continue, and go to uni afterwards, you can get RPL for doing a course, because we have university level subjects. So it's all accredited. So you can do that as well. But yeah, so it is a thing you need to consider, Nicholas, I guess, because I guess if you get far enough in, then you might want to just go, oh, I'm just going to wrap this up. But we also have students come on board, and this is the sadder end of things. Okay. We have students that complete degrees and then they can't get a bloody job. And so they come and do our boot camp. And yeah, they do learn a few things on the way, because we try to stay at the pointy end of tech, but they're primarily doing it for our internship opportunities and a chance to break into the industry. So we don't want anyone to waste their time and money doing something that they're not going to be able to get the opportunity to get into industry afterwards. Henry, do you want to ask
what other questions do we have there, Dallas or Henry? Anything on the chat?
So this one is a good one as well, from Alexandra. I did not forget to ask this question, Alexandra. How old are most of our students? So the age group, obviously for Code Academy, is a little bit more mature, but Michael, do you want to tell us a little bit more? Would it be between 26 plus to late 30s, late 40s, right?
Oh, right, the age. I don't have the statistics in front of me. There are a couple of people in the late 20s, but usually it's in 30s and 40s. It's people who've already had experience in industry, not any industry. Usually they're not. I can't remember any people from high school, straight out of high school or anything. Usually many of them have had a career and moving into this, yeah, or like Sarah, have disillusioned with their selected career and moved into this. That's a common scenario. Yeah.
I think usually it's about between 25 and so like 35, 40. That's kind of where they usually sit. A long time ago, fast track used to be completely full of people who were almost straight out of high school because you kind of tend to get a younger crowd in fast track and an older crowd in flex purely because it makes sense, right? Like people who are straight out of high school or younger people tend to have the ability to go ahead and do a full-time 6-month course and not work a job because they might live with their parents or something. Whereas a lot of the people, might be a little bit older during doing flex track purely because they need to have a part-time or casual job while studying. They can't just drop everything. So that tends to sort of be how it is. But I feel like it's usually about 25 to 35-ish is kind of like, the sweet spot, I guess. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter about how old you are, like you can teach an old dog new tricks. And also when it comes to gaining employment in the industry, they honestly, they don't care how old you are. All they care about is what you know. And also it's a good thing, coming from a different career and being able to get a job in tech and being able to look at things from a different perspective and sort of like give a different perspective to potential employers. That's what they want. They don't want someone who's just come straight out of uni and all they've done is high school, university, now I'm a developer. They don't have a story. They don't have any life experience yet. So it's actually going to work to your favor to be a little bit older.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to add to that is if you are a school leaver, and we do get some school leavers come straight to the boot camp, then as a general rule, we would probably recommend you did flex track rather than fast track, simply because coming straight out of school, it's pretty hard to then go into a 5-day-a-week intensive learning environment. But look, it's individual, and that's part of what the phone conversations that we have with students and the interview process is all about. So there's no one size fits all, but we can certainly help anybody with that. Other stuff, have you got anything to add to those comments, Sarah?
When you guys were saying that it was between 25 and 30, that's pretty much my class. We had a 19-year-old, a bunch of my friends are in early 20s. I'm 22, so it's crazy that the range of people. We've got a guy in our class who I don't know how old he is, but he said that he started to learn coding in BASIC. So so it's a huge range of different age groups there.
For those people who don't know, BASIC wasn't that a mainframe language? Is that right, Michael?
No, it was a computer programming language popularized by the Apple II. Before the Mac, there was the Apple II, and that was called AppleSoft BASIC. It was popularized by that. Beginning as all-purpose symbolic instruction code is what it stands for. But it's very... It took me back. Thanks, Sarah. It took me back.
Too much fun. That's what it is. Too much fun.
Put a year on that, Michael. When would that have been around?
It was invented in the late 70s. It was very popular in the early 80s.
Oh, okay. So, Sarah, maybe you can work out your classmate's age based on that.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't ask. I'm sure he's his own age, and it's fine.
Any other questions there, Dallas or Henry?
Yes, actually, there are a few about the internship. We have still quite a few questions to go, so I will go through it quickly. Let's talk a little bit more. There are several questions about the internship. How does it work? What kind of organizations we work with and stuff like that. I know you, Brendan, already mentioned it in one of the slides. You were actually showing some of the companies. But could you tell us a little bit more about the process of it? Obviously, the students probably, or the attendees all probably know by now that they don't have to do anything by themselves. They just have to attend that internship. But could you tell a little bit more about the process?
I think I might touch on the old internship. So basically how it works is we have a partnerships program, okay? So we have a lot of companies, I think there's about No, I'm not even going to say. Like, we actually, I think it's probably close to 10,000 companies across the board, but we deal with, like, say, about 500, rotating. But basically, we have a lot of companies on board that sort of deal with our internships, and they take on interns all the time. So what we really do is we essentially, like, assess you as you roll through the boot camp, and we sort of see where your strengths lie, and we ask you, like, where you think your strengths lie, where you want to be. You want to get in front end, you want to get in the back end, you want to do full stack, like, what do you want to do, what do you want to achieve? And then we also ask you things like, are there any companies that are on the horizon that you'd really love to get in touch with? Because for the most part, we've probably already spoken to them because we have a lot of contacts. And so what we'll do is, there's a form that goes out. It's sort of like a little assessment where you kind of like complete some questions and provide some information for us. And the main part of that is at the very end, where you sort of like have a summary. Okay, so it's sort of like a summary that you create on yourself, and it's almost like a cover letter that's written by you that we throw out to basically companies. And essentially, you might get your CV and your portfolio and your LinkedIn profile and your GitHub link. We'll send it out to a bunch of different companies, and we'll see what sticks, and we'll try to make sure it's somewhat tailored towards what you want. And we basically line up an admissions, sorry, not an admissions interview. We line up an interview with that company, and essentially you need to go ahead and basically kill it at the interview and gain yourself an internship. As Alex said earlier, his was paid. Some of them are paid, most of them are not. We don't promise anything. It's a 1 month unpaid internship, but some companies do decide to pay you. And some companies are keener to get you on board afterwards. So 50% of the students that participate in internships end up getting offered jobs by those companies afterwards. But essentially it comes down to, it's a lot of work on you as well. Okay, so we have the contacts, okay, but we could line up a million interviews. If you suck at interviewing every single time, like, you're not going to get anywhere. So we both got to work together to try and get you into an internship. We have the contacts, but you need to, put yourself forward, and you need to make make a point of difference, so to speak. When you're talking about having 30 students with, a bunch of portfolios, and you all essentially have the same CV, it's not going to help. You need to make yourself stand out, and also, and do your best in these interviews. But so it's a sort of a team effort to get you placed in internship. But I think it's definitely worth it to take that route. Did I answer it?
That was pretty smooth, Dallas.
Cool.
Now, one from Michael. When the students are working on their final projects, how much freedom they have in general? Is there any guidelines that they have to follow based on what they have learned throughout the program, throughout the bootcamp, or is there kind of freedom that they can use any kind of platforms they want to?
Well, okay, big question, actually. They have to use the technology that we have used in the course. You can't go out and use different technologies. And that's the reason being is everyone operates on the same platform. The assignment is good. The last assignment is very good because it has to have a real world application. We actually invite students to find friends and family and companies where they have a real problem and solve it in the assignment as a prototype, as a proof of concept. It has to be, so there is freedom in the problem you're solving. There's not freedom in, it can't be trivial. It has to be actually a real world problem, with data involved, transactions, multiple users, and completion. Solving this problem in a digital solution creates value. So that's the underlying thing. But we do have an expectation you're going to have used the certain technologies that we've used through the course.
Thanks for that, Michael. Let me just quickly check what else we have here. Let's see this one.
Henry, there's one there that follows on from Dallas's answer about the internships, which we could probably do. About, do all students get internship placements or only top perform students? What are the criteria, generally speaking, Dallas? Because we've got partnerships with these companies and we want to maintain those partnerships. Do you want to just add that little bit in there?
Yeah, sure. So I guess eligibility for internship is really important. Basically, the two main things are that we ask you to have good attendance. So you need to turn up to class, okay? If you don't turn up to class, you're not going to turn up to a job. So we're not going to basically put you forward for internship, but essentially turn up to class, okay? And even if it's virtual, turn up to virtual classes as well. And the other thing is we ask a first-time pass rate on assessments, okay? And not just a first-time pass rate on assessments, we kind of do want you to get a credit, okay? But that's not a deal breaker if you don't get credits across the board. It's just that we need you to be passionate, and if you are passionate, it'll show in your work. So that's sort of the two main things that you need to do. We'll also obviously assess you on technical capability. It'll happen throughout the whole boot camp, so we'll have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen there. And then towards the end, there's going to be a little bit of an assessment, so to speak, or a little bit of criteria around soft skills. Okay, so despite what 90s hacker movies have told you, coders don't sit in a dark room by themselves all the time. Okay, so you do work you work in a team, okay, and you're going to be able to communicate with your team. It's really important, and that's basically how things move forward. And so essentially, you need to have good communication skills and being able to speak to other people, and you need to be able to, I guess, succeed in interviews, like I just said before. So basically, you'll kind of be like judged on, your soft skills and also your technical capabilities. And that's what we sort of use to see whether you're going to be getting into an internship. Now, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, the last, let's say, 2.5 years, as far as I remember, everyone has been eligible for internship, okay? So because everyone's going to put the effort in, because if you want a job, even if you don't have solid soft skills, you're going to try to. You're gonna do your best to try and speak. And also, I know we're talking about a lot of developers as well. I'm not saying you have to have the soft skills that I have, okay? No one's asking you to be able to get up and public speak all the time, but you do need to be able to participate in an interview and basically get your thoughts across and advise someone as to why you are the pick, why you're the one that needs the internship.
And you have beautiful soft skills, Dallas. I just got brought a cup of tea, by the way, so I'm very appreciative of that. Yes, so Henry, what else have we got any other questions?
Yes, sure we do. From Michael. How do you feel the tech industry companies compare in Sydney to Brisbane? This is something that we already spoke about earlier a little bit. But do you feel that the companies are choosing different approach when they are looking for people? This one is from Timothy.
So let me just repeat the question. Do companies have different approaches in hiring? Is that
in hiring and also as an industry? Obviously, Sydney would be perhaps considered as one of the hub, in Australia. But how do you feel when it compares to opportunities in Brisbane? I actually had several conversations with people in the past from the industry, and they say, Brisbane is smaller, obviously, but there is actually lots of opportunities for full stack developers. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question, actually. There are small differences, but those differences are based usually on language. For some reason, one city will be more Python than on Ruby, and who knows why? But if you have the fundamentals, it doesn't really matter, because a good interview, a good process, they will talk. That there may be a coding test, but it's more the way how you think. So the difference geography shouldn't really matter. And you can be upfront. I don't know this language, but let's try this. Can I use this language? If they will say yes, that's fine. But I just want to, COVID has changed the game. And there is this thing called remote working. And so if you are looking only in Brisbane for employment, and I must admit, when you're new into the industry, it's a bit remote, maybe not immediately available, but be mindful that it's one industry where going forward, geography doesn't determine your career. Yeah.
I guess also it comes down to, I can personally speak to Brisbane, I guess so can Sarah, but in Brisbane, the tech community is like super tight knit. So like There's lots of sort of meetups, and I guess because it is a bit smaller, there's like small hubs and stuff, and there's always things going on. And so everyone kind of knows everyone, or someone knows someone who you know. So that's definitely comes through for Brisbane. But that's all I really got to say on the topic, because I don't know really much about what's happening in Sydney, so to speak. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Thanks, Dallas. And we actually push students, get out there, get to the meetups, do the twittering, do all that, because it adds to the package. It's a really important point, that going into the interview, you're to some extent, you're already a known quantity in the industry, and just removes that more risk from the decision-making process for the CTO or the hiring manager. Yeah, really good point.
Question from Nam. Do you have any graduates that go on to working with one of the largest organizations in Austria, such as Atlassian, REA, Computershare Zero, and Car Sales, and many others? I think we actually did have students who were going to one of those, or to some of those. Michael, Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, definitely. So carsales.com, absolutely. Atlassian, yes, we do have a few, and that's those that know much about Atlassian. That's super cool. That our graduates, actually, we do have grads that work at Atlassian now. So yeah, yes. Answer is yes.
Fantastic. And from Mujataba, I apologize if the pronunciation is not perfect in this case. A question is, what would you recommend, Michael, to brush up on before beginning the flex or fast track? We spoke before about that we have people who have never done programming. So obviously, you don't have to study, as we said, 6 months before you starting the course. But if someone is trying to be proactive, what would there be instead of beside the free modules that we have on the website, and I have already shared in the chat?
All right.
What would you think?
Like I said, I'd be this game very pragmatic, but just to start off the process, a lot of the fundamentals we teach come out of a computer language called Ruby. And so it would be wise, you don't have to go overboard, but become acquainted with that language. Unfortunately for that language, the documentation, even though it's been around, it's catch-22. You're supposed to know a lot before you understand the documentation. And that's where we come in, we actually guide. So there are resources available, which I'll share, but there's a thing called the Agile Web Development with Rails, which is kind of the Bible. Yeah.
I have another actually to add to that. Before I came to the course, I did a course, free online course through edX called CS50. It's a Harvard course. It's so simple. It's just fundamentals of engineering. So not of engineering, of software development. So it's the things that it doesn't cross over with Code Academy too much in terms of tech stack. So you actually learn Python, but that gives you such a great base to learn Ruby. And it gives you those fundamentals of computer science that make it easier to understand what we're learning in the course, but you don't need it. But I found that was incredibly valuable, rather than going and trying to learn a language or like a tech stack, more learn the fundamentals behind computer science. And that will help like immensely when you're trying to learn the tech stacks that Coda teaches.
I also just threw I actually just threw a link in for something that we have now, actually. So if you want to check that out at coderacademy.edu.au/learn to code, check out some stuff there. There's got a little bit of stuff about terminal, a little bit about Git, a little bit about Ruby. Just yeah, to get a bit of a taste and make sure it's for you, which it will be.
Just what's there again? Both those recommendations are great. The CS50 is a really good course, the Harvard one. That's right. Yeah, talks about binary counting and everything, just the basics.
Yeah, and if you're worried about the math aspect of Coder Academy, doing CS50 first, you're set for the math side of things. It teaches you that as well, like to a lesser degree than Coder Academy does. So it gives you a good basis.
I think I actually, I'm not sure if I actually threw it in, but there is a maths prep thing that I've got for that's actually at Khan Academy as well. So if anyone's worried about the maths, then check that out too. Because that is just about the things you need to know to basically succeed when it comes to discrete mathematics.
Beautiful. Anything else, Henry?
That's it from me.
We pretty much got, look, so guys, if there is any final questions, or if you think we've missed a question that you asked, or if you think that the answer that you got didn't really cover off what you wanted, please drop it into the chat now. If it doesn't come in the next minute or so, we're probably going to pull the pin here. So it really just remains for me to thank everyone. Oh, what's that? Oh, no, that's fine. To thank Sarah and Michael in particular for giving their time and for telling us about their experience. Henry and Dallas for working in the background on all the chat questions, and very much so for all of you guys who dropped in this evening. I know I haven't had a chance to say hello to you individually, but I have seen an awful lot of people here this evening that I know I've spoken to in the last week or two. So I really hope this has been useful. And if you are thinking about whether this course is for you, I hope this has made your decision easier one way or the other. And I hope it's allowed you to see a little bit inside the bootcamp, and maybe why the Coder Academy Bootcamp is the top-rated bootcamp going around. We would love to see you here. We would love to change your career. We'd love to change your lives, really. And that's what this does. That's what a really good coding bootcamp does. It takes you from one place where maybe you're not too happy, and it takes you to your happy place. Let's all go to our happy places. My happy place right now is to go and get something to eat, and I'm sure that's what most of you are going to do as well. About the only person who's not hungry is Alex, because he spoke to us eating chicken wings from outside a restaurant somewhere in Brisbane. So guys, thank you very much. I'm going to hit the kill button any moment, and in the meantime, I think we should all wave goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.